Good morning, Rabbi.
Good morning. All right, Danielle, I got your pictures, which is great.
Amazing. Rabbi, I can play from here also in case it's needed, but I think with you the picture will be much better.
Wait another moment. Here we go. All right. Morning, guys.
Morning.
Let's start. Let us go. Freilach. With the help of Hashem, we are learning ERUVIN DAF tests. I would like to thank Dr. Daniel Hassan for the pictures that he sent to me, which will really facilitate, oh, this is great, the learning today. I want to review two cases that we had at the end of yesterday's shiur, which will help us follow on DAF tests. First of all, we learned yesterday a machloikis. This is already the second time that we had that, whether one is allowed to carry under the koida or not. And as the Gemara gave various options of understanding what's underlying that machlokes, let's go that if the koida is there, mishum hekeda, the question is the heker made for whom? Was it made for the Bnei HaMavui? And as we explained, when the people are in the Mavui, when they look, they see the inner part of the koida. So therefore, they can only carry until the edge of the inner edge of the koida. They can't carry underneath it. Or is the koida primarily made for the Bnei Reshus HaRabim? Like we explained, we don't want people in the Reshus HaRabim to look inside the Mavui, to see people carrying in the Mavui, and they're going to say, if they're carrying in there, so we can carry out here, so they need to have a heker. When people in the Reshus HaRabim look into the Mavui, so they see what is visible to them, the outer edge of the koida. But in other words, if the heket is being provided by the outer edge, then you are allowed to carry underneath it. So I wanted to share the following thought. If we were to align these domains that we're learning about a bias that opens up into a chatzir, that opens up into a mavui, that opens up into the Reshus HaRabim. Guys, bear with me. If this can correspond to the worlds Atzilus, Bria, Yitzira, and Asiya, in other words, the bias, the innermost place, corresponds to the highest world. And then finally, I have the outer, the Reshus HaRabim, is the Olam Asiya, is Tura de Pruda. And indeed, like we find, for example, the story in Baba Basra, Daf Nun Ches, that when Rabbana was about to look into the Ma'aras HaMachpelah, he was told by Eliezer Eved Avram that not everything you see in here, you should apply to out there. Here, there's no Yetzer Hara in the world. There is a Yetzer Hara. In other words, the concept that people that are out here in the Reshus HaRabim, that even if they have an insight into what's happening in the Mavui, they should not learn from it. Or vice versa, people in the world or beings, neshamot and malachim from the world of Yetzirah, that they want to share a certain amount of godliness with people down here, but they have to be afraid there's a certain barrier, because if they give too much, there might be a yinikas achitzainim. I think this is a very interesting way of understanding this entire sugya. Number one. Number two, the last thing that we learned about was at the end of Daf Ches Amud Beis, and that is that the koida was not placed on top of the walls in the Mavui, but it was placed in front of it. So that was the case. There were two pegs that were protruding out over the Reshus HaRabim, and upon which or in which a koida was put. So we had the machlokes between Rab Chizda and Rava. Rab Chizda says, Ledivrei hamatir, the people that allow you to carry under the koida, and this is following the logic that koida mishum mechitza. Why are you allowed to carry under the koida? Because we say that it is the outer edge that goes down and creates this halachic mechitza, which then would mean that this mechitza is far away from the wall. So asur, the whole koida doesn't function, because the koida is not aligned with the walls of the mavui. However, if you can carry underneath the koida, why can you not carry underneath it? Because what edge of the koida goes down the inner edge, their inner edge is touching the wall. So it's Ke'ilu, the Mechitza is taka closing off, touching the wall. Now, what I would like to read out is the last Rashi in the Amid. Rashi asks, a Bamba Kasha. We already learned so many times the rule of Lavud. The rule of Lavud should dictate that even Ledivrei Hamatir, which means, don't forget guys, the Koira is 1 tefach wide. Okay, so the halachic mechitza that's coming down from the edge, the outer edge of the Koira, is 1 tefach away from the walls of the Mavui. So what? Say Lavud. Lavud should tell you that it's as if it's adjacent to Mavui. So answers Rashi Gavaldik Klal. We say Lavud for something that's physical. So if there's, let's say, a physical fence and there's a hole in it, but the hole is less than 3 tfachim, boom, Lavud. It's as if it's connected. This entire mechitza is only a halachic mechitza. Really, there's only a koira. So we cannot do these two things together. Say, first of all, pi tikra yored v'soisam. Halachically, there's a wall coming down. And now apply lavud and make that wall move all the way adjacent to. We can't apply both of these things together. That's Rashi at the end of Rav Chesam and base. Rava argues with Rav Chizda, and Rava says, even ledivrei ha'oisen, even if you're going to say that this halachic mechitza is coming down from the inner edge of the koira, and therefore it's halachically keilu touching mamish the walls of the mavoi, it's also not good. Why? The last line we learned in the Amid, because the koira has to be on top of the mavoi. But inan koira al gabo mavoi. And as we mentioned yesterday, this concept is halacha l'maisa when it comes to our making of a tzuras HaPesach in the city-wide ERUVIN or in an ERUV around the bungalow colony, v'chulei. And there we all know the importance of making sure that even though we don't have the limit, you don't have to have a koira that's a tefach wide, even a string is enough, but these strings have to be on top of the beams, on top of the poles, and not even adjacent, but in front or in the back of it. That's the machlekes that we left off yesterday. Now, we're going to continue today learning a couple of amazing things. But I know that we spoke about Lavud so many times, not only here in ERUVIN, we spoke about it on Shabbos. Really, Lavud always comes up. ERUVIN Daf Tes will tell us that Lavud is a machlekes tanoim. Everyone agrees to Lavud. There is no machlekes in by a halacha l'Moshe Messinai. Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu the rule of Lavud. The question is, how much space is the space of Lavud? So we keep on knocking, which is the halacha that we accept that Lavud is 3 tfachim is the cutoff. Less than 3 tfachim, yes, Lavud. The moment you hit 3 tfachim, you no longer say Lavud. My friends, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says Lavud is connected to 4 tfachim. And we're going to see how, well, it's the same concept, but under 4 tfachim, you still say Lavud. And how that machlekas will play itself out in our sugya. There's another halacha l'Moshe Messinai, which is similar to Lavud, but it's called chavoit. Chavoit v'rami. Chavoit means make lower. So if you have a roof and there is a opening in the roof, there's a hole in the roof, but above the hole, there is some sort of covering above it. So we say chavoit, lower that covering, and it's keilu inside the hole, and it closes up the hole. Obviously, we're speaking about a hole in the roof that's more than 3 tfachim. 3 tfachim or more, because if the hole itself is less than 3 tfachim, you don't need chavoit. So nachaklal, we're going to have now, even though we spoke yesterday in Daf Chesam at Beis, that even though there's a machlokes whether you can carry under the koira, but l'kula alma, Rav Chizda says, you may not carry opposite the lechi. Really? We're going to see that there is a machlokes between Abaye and Rava, what Rabbi Yechanan holds. We're going to be learning another application of the concept of matzah minas minoi v'neyar. We're going to be learning about a lechi lined mavoi. We'll have pictures for all of that. We're going to learn a lot about a lechi that's only visible to people on one side. This idea that we have been speaking about when you have a mechitza, and on one side you can notice it, but on the other side it's flush. We'll have pictures that will describe that. But Klal, I can say that all of these cases, as we get into ERUVIN, will become easier and easier. We'll become familiarized with it. And again, a huge thank you to Dr. Hassan, both for the pictures here on Zoom and now for the physical pictures that I have, which will really facilitate the understanding of these sugyas that are only challenging technically, but the Gemara is like any other Gemara. Of course, the Gemara is difficult, or the Gemara is easy, or the Gemara is whatever you make it to be. But the greatest challenge in ERUVIN is understanding the Metzias, and there's nothing that beats a picture. All right. We're going to start. We left off on the last line of Daf Ches on the days. Again, we have this machloikas between Rav Chizda and Rava. All right, according to Rav Chizda, Limanda Amar, that holds that you may not carry under the beam if the koira is placed in front of the mavui, hanging on pegs. You could, it's a good koira because the mechitza that's coming down is coming from the inner edge. And Rava holds, everyone will hold that you cannot use that mavui, you can't carry in that mavui. The koira is not valid because the koira is not on top and it has to be on top. So it says the Gemara, truth be told, the following question won't only be on Rava, but as you have here on the side, that this will also be a question on Rav Chizda. Okay, but as we'll see, simpler according to Rava. What's the kasha? It says in a brayso, hoisa koira mishucha dates amad aleph. The havamina is koira mishucha. The word mishucha means drawn away. We begin by thinking this is taka de koira that's not on top of the walls of the mavui, but this is the case of the machlaikas, that you have the two pegs going out, jutting over the Rishus Harabim, and the koira is not on top of the walls of the mavui, but it's drawn away in the front. That's the case that we have been speaking about. Oi tuluya. Now this is a new case, guys. Here's the picture. Tuluya means that the koira is not wide enough to go from wall to wall. If the koira would have been a little bit longer, then it would have rested on top of the walls of the mavui. Problem is, it's not long enough. So what did someone do? They put a vertical beam in middle of the entrance to the mavui, upon which they're resting the koira. So the koira is where it should be, but it does not touch neither of the walls. Good. Shlomi, you're shaking your head. It's not good, the picture?
The lighting, you cannot really see the picture. No.
I hope that the Chabad.org can see the picture. So maybe Daniel Hassan, you schwitz. There we go. Okay. So now keep the picture up. Keep the picture up. That's the picture. So says the Braisa, if pachus migimel, if the open space between the ends of the koira and the walls of the mavui is less than 3. In other words, we have the din of lavud. So it's as if it's touching the top of the walls of the mavui. Guys, this case, it's not in front. It's in the right place. However, if it's gimel or more, gimel means 3 tvachim or more, then you have to bring another koira to add to it because it's not a koira. Here is where we have the shita of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. Everyone holds of lavut, but he has a different number for lavut. It's dalit. Lavut always means, like gimel doesn't mean 3 lavut, less than 3. If it's dalit, it's less than dalit. Dalit is arba'ah with a hey at the end, which means tvachim. Pachus mi dalit ain't tzarich lavi koira acheres. Dalit tzarich lavi koira acheres. Now, what's the end of Braisa? So the havamina is the top word in this amud. Meshucha luchura is the case of our machlokes, where the koira is hanging in front of the mavui. My love meshucha means mibachutz. Only the case of tuluya is where it's mibafnim. And the kasha then will be, Rava holds that lekula alma, the meshucha does not function. Even the truth is, even Abchizda. Here we are saying that as long the Tanakama, even if the koira is drawn in front of the mavui, if it's within 3 tvachim, or according to Rashbag, if it's within 4 tvachim, we apply the din of lavut, and it's a good koira. It functions. So it's a kasha on Rav, and it's really a kasha on Abchizda. Answers the Gemara law. You didn't understand the Braisa. Meshucha and Tuluya tak are 2 cases, but either mibefnim. Mibefnim means that the koira, if it would have been working, it would have been laying on top of the wall of the mavui, which is good according to everyone. Meshucha means only miruach achas. Guys, here's the picture. Miruach achas means that it's drawn away, not in the front. It's drawn away from the side. Only one side is stuck on top of the wall. Exactly. Here's the picture. And one side is not. And that's according to the first answer. And Tuluya is Mishnei Ruchas, is the case that we had before. Now, why would the Braisa have to give both cases? miruach achas, if they only would have been shown the case that's here on the miruach achas, here, taket works, because we say miruach achas, we say lavud. One erroneously would have thought mishtei ruchos leimnin and lavud, so that's why the Braisa said meshucha, even teluya is good. Answer number one. But the entire Braisa is never speaking about the case where the koyre is in front of the mavli, over the Rishus Rabbah. Answer number two, Rav Ashi Amar, the Braisa is only speaking about one case. Meshucha and teluya is the same case. Meshucha v'hi teluya. So my friends, here's the picture of meshucha v'hi teluya. What's that meshucha v'hi teluya? There's two issues with the koyre. Number one, no, go back, Daniel. No, you were good before. That's it. Number one is that it's not long enough to lay on top of the walls. Now, what they did is they put what we would call right angle pegs, and they, by the way, if these pegs would have been a tefach wide, then they would have been halachically part of the koyre. Then of course it would be good. Problem here is that these pegs don't have the minimum width of a koyre, so they don't function as a koyre. The koyre now, not only is the koyre not touching the walls, but it's also higher than the height of the walls. So here is what the Braisa is going to come and tell you, that even this is good. It's on top. Now the advantage is, the reason why it's good is, it's not 3 tfachim higher, it's less than 3 tfachim above, and also the ein ba'ak mumiyasan gimel, and also the you don't need to have 3 tfachim of the peg going horizontally, it's less than that. In other words, both sides of the koyre are within 3 tfachim from the sides of the walls, or from the top of the walls. So Mao the Taiman, here there's a big chiddush, because for this to function, not only do we have to apply the din of lavud, we also have to apply the din of chavoit. Mao the Taiman, oy lavud amrinan, oy chavoit. Again, chavoit is something that we'll use a lot in Sukkah. There the Gemara uses the words chavoit v'rami. The word chavoit means to bring down. Just to explain something, the concept of gudachis, we spoke about gudachis. Gudachis means that from the edge of the roof, or if you have a wall, you halachically consider that wall to continue to go down. You draw down a wall. But my friends, this is a wall. Good is to go down just a wall. Chavoit means if you have a big area, all of it comes down. It's a much stronger koyach. Like we mentioned, if there's a hole in the roof and on top of the hole there's something on top of it, we make believe as if it comes all the way down. Not a wall, however big the tile on top is. So here we also have to say chavoit. Chavoit brings down, chavoit is bringing down this entire beam. And we talk and say, well, we would have thought we say one or the other. But lavud and chavoit lo yamrinan. So that's the Braisa telling you that you can employ both of these halacha l'moshe misinais, and that will render this koyre a good koyre. All right, moving on. Says the Gemara. Chane Rab Zakoi kamei de Rabbi Yechanan. Rab Zakoi is an Amoira, but he heard a Braisa that other people did not yet know, and he's sharing his Braisa in front of Rabbi Yechanan. That what? That bein lechoyayim, guys, you only need to have one lechi. So again, Rashi speaks out on Chesam Beis. When he uses the plural, he means when you have many mavois, and each one has lechis, so there's many lechis. Bein lechoyayim means opposite the lechi. Like we mentioned yesterday, there is carrying under the koyre. Same question, can you carry opposite the lechi? So yesterday we learned that Rab Chizda said that l'kula alma you can carry opposite the lechi. Right, that is what we had yesterday. Hakol moedim, I'm reading the words of Rab Chizda, the second wide line from DAF Chesam Beis. Hakol moedim bein lechoyayim sha'aser. Yeah, we're going to see nishtazoi hakol moedim. That bein lechoyayim and v'tachas hakoyra, both are like a karmelis. By the way, this is like Rab Chizda, and you can't carry it. So when Rabbi Yechanan heard this Braisa, Amar Lei, he tells Rab Zakoi, Puk, Tanei Lebara, go outside and teach the Braisa out there. That's an expression in which Rabbi Yechanan is saying that he does not accept that this Bryce is authoritative. It's a corrupted Bryce. So you got it wrong. You want to teach it? Not inside my base Midrash. In other words, he rejects it. Now the question is, does he reject both dinim or only one din? So Amar Abayim, Mistavra Milsa Rabbi Yechanan, he's rejecting the Brysa only because of the Tachas HaKoira part. Because Rabbi Yechanan holds that you could carry under the Koira. Speaking about the Bnei Mavu, he can carry under the Koira. Abel, but that part of the Brysa, the first part of this Brysa, that says that Bein L'Choyayin Asir, Rabbi Yechanan is also moided to that, which is like we learned yesterday from Rabbi Chisda. Rava says no, that Bein L'Choyayin Nami Mutar, that Rabbi Yechanan will hold that you are allowed to carry opposite the Lechi. He doesn't agree with Rabbi Chisda that says Hakoil Moedim. No, you could carry. Now, how do I know? How do I know? Because it's not clear why Rabbi Yechanan told Rav Zakai, get out of here with this Braisa or take the Braisa out. I'll tell you how I know. Because the Chiyos of Abdimi, when Abdimi came from Babel, from Eretz Yisrael, and it was common that these Amoraim would come and bring back teachings from the Amoraim of Eretz Yisrael, the chief of which is Rabbi Yechanan, Amar Rabbi Yechanan, Mokim she'ein boy dalad al dalid. When you have a place that is 10 tvachim tall, but there isn't 4 by 4, truth be told, even if it's less than 10 tvachim, if it's at least 3 tvachim off the ground, not 4 by 4, that's your makom ptur. Remember that? So if you have an area that's in the Rishus Harabim, it goes up. It doesn't have 4. If it has 4 by 4, even though it's not 10, it's called a karmelis. Any airspace above 10 tvachim in the Rishus Harabim to begin with is a makom ptur. Now, if it has 4 by 4, it becomes a Rishus Hayachim. But a place that doesn't have 4 by 4 tvachim is a makom ptur, and therefore he spoke about Hilchas Shabbos. Mutar levnei Rishus Harabim, levnei Rishus Hayachim lekatev olav. So imagine at the edge of a Rishus Harabim, there's a platform. Who has access to the platform? In a case, both people in the Rishus Hayachid have access to it, and the people in the Rishus Harabim have access to it. It's like a mailbox deposit, and it's mamish bordering the Rishus Hayachid, Rishus Harabim. Being that it has less than 4 by 4 the top, therefore, as a din of a makom ptur, you are allowed lechatchila to carry from a Rishus Hayachid to a makom ptur. You can carry from a Rishus Harabim to a makom ptur. So people that are in the Rishus Hayachid and people that are in the Rishus Harabim, the example that he gives is if they have a backpack and they want to rest, but they don't want to take it off. They simply want to lean the pekel on this platform. They are allowed to do it. That's called lekatev. Lekatev means to rest their shoulders, to rest their pekel. However, ubavad shelo yachlifu, like we learned in Masechta Shabbos, you can't have something coming from the Rishus Hayachid going into the Rishus Harabim through the makom ptur. By the biblically, you could, but with the Chachamim don't know. You can't take a pekel from the Rishus Hayachid and put it on a platform, and then someone should pick it up and take it into the Rishus Harabim, because then ultimately you took something mit Rishus Hayachid with Rishus Harabim. Also want to clarify, we spoke this out in the last Masechta, in the Rishus Harabim, you're not allowed to carry. Who has a pekel on their shoulders that they need to be mekatev? So the example we gave us is that if you are walking less than 4 amas, even though normally we don't advise you to do so, but in such a scenario, and now you have to rest on top of this platform, you can do it. Now, Abaye says, 1 second, so what's the raya? What's the raya? A lechi doesn't have 4 tvachim. So l'chura, the lechi, the area opposite the lechi, again, the lechi is not wide, it's not deep, 4 tvachim, it should be like the makom ptur. And you are allowed to carry from the mavui, right? The mavui is a Rishus Hayachid, you can carry to a makom ptur. So it makes sense that Rabbi Yechanan will say that even bein l'chayayim you can carry. Says Abaye, no, you can't compare one case to the other. Over there, the Rav Dimi's Amar Rabbi Yechanan is you have a platform that's at least 3 tvachim or higher above the ground. That's why it's called a makom ptur. Here, the floor of the mavui, I know there's a lechi on the side. So what? So there's a lechi on the side. But nevertheless, the ground, the area bein l'choyayim opposite the lechi is on the ground. That does not have a din of a makom ptur. And not only that, he's going to hold that it's so close to the Rishus Harabim, Abaye holds, that Rabbi Yechanan will hold in order to carry it. And we'll go further. Amar Abaye Mina Amin Allah that Rabbi Yochanan holds that you're not allowed to carry opposite the lechi. Amar Rav Chama bar Guria Amar Rav. It's amazing that we are going to assume, and we're going to leave this assumption, that if Rav made a statement, why would Rabbi Yochanan argue? Unless we know he argues. There's many arguments. But if we don't know that he argues, so Rabbi Yochanan will agree with the statement. What's the statement? That Pesach, Toich Pesach, Toich HaPesach, Sorech Lechi Acher LaHatiroi. What are we talking about? What's the Toich HaPesach? So, very good. Now, guys, look at the picture. It's amazing. Don't even look at the lechi yet. Here, you don't have the normal openness from the Reshus HaRabim into the Mavui. They built at the area of the entrance on both sides of the Mavui a little bit of a wall, The question is that a lechi? It's a super lechi. It's not a little lechi on one side. It's two walls on both sides. And on that says, let me find my place over here. Rav Chama bar Guria Amarav, that these walls make the inside of it completely mutter. You don't need a lechi because the walls are the lechi. But if you want to carry within the entrance space, for that you need to have a lechi. Now hold on. If you are allowed to carry opposite the lechi, just like he's moida that these walls are the lechi for the mavui. So then even within the entranceway, why would you need to have another lechi? If you can carry bein lechayayim, you're good to go. That's the biggest raya that Rav holds. And why would Rabbi Yochanan argue? We don't know that he argues, so he agrees with it, that the lechi only helps to be matir that which is within the lechi, but not opposite the lechi. And v'chi teimam, that the reason why you need a lechi to be matir this entrance space in this picture is because the isbei daled al daled. In other words, the area speaking about the depth of the entranceway is 4 tefachim, and therefore what, my friends? Any area 4 tefachim has a din of a kadamelis. No, that can't be. Why? Because Amar Rav Chanan bar Rava, Amar Rav, Toich HaPesach. Clearly, Rav made a statement. Even if the depth of the entranceway, Afal Pi she'ein boi daled al daled, nevertheless, these walls are a super lechi, a double lechi, but only for inside. But if you want to carry within the entrance space, sarich lechi achel latiroi. So clearly, Rav holds that you may not carry opposite the lechi. And why would Rabbi Yochanan disagree? Says Rava holds over there. Rabbi Yochanan agrees to Rav. But you know what this case is? If you take a look at the picture, you got to make one correction. Nothing regarding the picture. You see where it says in the Reshus HaRabim? Cross that out. Cross out the words of the Reshus HaRabim. No, exactly. In the bottom, don't go to, there's no other picture. All you need to do is that here it's a kadamelis. Imagine, guys, look what he's saying. If there's a Reshus HaRabim going into a mavui, then you wouldn't have to put the lechi. The walls themselves are a double lechi, and you can carry within the entrance space because you can carry opposite the lechi. If the front of the mavui is a kadamelis, then it's more problematic. Only then do you need to put a lechi to be matir within the entranceway. Now, guys, that's opposite logic because the Reshus HaRabim is much more serious than a kadamelis. So it says the Gemara about Abel Reshus HaRabim. Are you insisting, which he insists, that Rav will hold and Rabbi Yochanan will hold, that even without the additional lechi you are allowed to carry shari? What kind of logic is that? And here we have a beautiful Talmudic expression: Yetziva ba'ara v'giyura b'shmei shemayim. The citizen is down on the ground, and the foreigner is living in the heavens. Heavens on the ground. The heavens are the people that are higher up in the social ladder. And the normal should be that citizens should be higher up in the social ladder. If you are a foreigner, if you're an immigrant, if you're a ger, you start up in the bottom of the ladder. But where do you have a society that dafke the ger is we're giving honor to the ger. Right, a lot of them is shagas of the society today, but that's topsy-turvy. Doesn't make sense. That's an expression of topsy-turvy. So the Gemara says, no, it makes sense in, and listen to these words, matzah min esminoi v'neyar, which is mamish gavaldik. In other words, that the shusayachid, when the entranceway, you can put the picture back up, Daniel, is abutting the Reshus Harabim, it's so different than the Reshus Harabim, it's a different halachic status. Really, it's part of the Mavui. It's in between the entranceway. And therefore, the area within the entranceway that has no relationship, no halachic relationship with the Reshus Harabim, will never merge with the Reshus Harabim. But if the front is a carmelis, since within the entranceway, as we mentioned, right, can have a status of a carmelis, we can view this as a carmelis. It's not yet a bona fide Reshus HaYachid. So now that marries the carmelis. It becomes like a carmelis. And therefore it becomes connected halachically with a carmelis. And just like rabbinically you cannot carry on a carmelis, so that will extend to within the entranceway. Matzah minas minoi, and it reawakens it. If the front is a Reshus Harabim, my friends, we're going to view the within the entranceway as a Reshus HaYachid. But now that you have a carmelis in the front, so then since carmelis is already halachically midoiraisa, a carmelis is a Reshus HaYachid. It's not a Reshus Harabim, so it's a Reshus HaYachid. So since it's already more similar to the entrance of the to the Mavui, it's a negative. It makes the within the entranceway part of the outside carmelis. And that's why you have to have another lechi. So yes, it does make sense. And therefore, it doesn't prove that Rabbi Yechanan will hold that you cannot carry bein l'chayayim. He could carry bein l'chayayim opposite the lechi. Givaldi. And Amar le'rafuna b'nei Rabbi Yishua l'Rava. Another, you won't hold that the bein l'chayayim asur, that Rabbi Yechanan will hold that. Same back and forth now. So Amar Rabba bar bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yechanan, Mavui she'et safei b'l'chayayim. Another case. If you have a mavui that's lined up with a succession of lechis, so the question will be, how much space do you have in between each lechi? So says Rabbi Yechanan, if pachus midalid, if in between each lechi there's more than 3, it's important. That's the love of machlokes we have today. But less than 4, that's the machlokes of Rashbag and the Rabbanon, that what? Lirashbag, that applies lavud because it's less than 4. So therefore, we consider the entire lechi one lechi, lavud, mishtamesh ad chudei hapnimi shalechi hapnimi, based on the assumption now that you can never carry opposite the lechi. And this is now one lechi, so that ruined all of that space, because now opposite the entire succession is an area in which you may not carry. You can only carry up until the end or the edge of the inner lechi. However, according to the Rabbanim, since it's 3 tvachim or more in between each one of these lechis, the Amri Lemnin Alavut, it's not considered one wide lechi. B'meila, which lechi is the lechi that's valid? The one that's adjacent to the Reshus Harabim. And therefore, you are allowed to carry until that outer one that he's putting the circle around. You can only carry up until the inner edge. It comes out the kula al. Everyone agrees that bein l'chayayim is asur. The only question is how much of it is considered the lechi. So, and this is in the name of Rabbi Yechanan. So how can you, Rava, say that even according to Rabbi Yechanan, you are allowed to carry opposite the lechi? So here again, it gives the same answer. Rava says that this statement that you quoted from Rabba bar bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yechanan, was only when the mavui is open to a carmelis. Hassan nami the pesuach like carmelis. Yovaldik. Abel Reshus Harabim. But if it's open to a Reshus Harabim, then you can even carry opposite the lechi. So the Gemara says, "My shari." Again, does that make sense? Yetziva ba'ara, the citizen, is down there in the social ladder. The Giyura and the foreigner, he's going to be placed on a higher pedestal. It's topsy-turvy. So the Gemara says, yeah. If the front is a Reshus Harabim, The mavui is a reshus hayachid. We're speaking about biblically, because like we mentioned, any area that has 3 walls is a biblical reshus hayachid, and that includes the area opposite the lechi. So it's so unconnected. Then you can carry in the mavui all the way to the edge of the reshus harabim. But if the front is a carmelis, and we can consider now the area of the mavui as, even though biblically it's a reshus hayachid, but since the Chachamim says you have to put a heker, you have to put a lechi, so in other words, it's a carmelis until you do so. So there is a halachic commonality. So when you have something like connects, matzah minas minoi, and it reawakens the area opposite the lechi to be vayta considered as a carmelis. And now you may not carry midrabanan from a reshus hayachid into a carmelis. Gavaldik chevretes amid beis. Another answer. We're continuing. Ravashi Amar. Zok the hele Gerashi and top of the Amid. Ravashi Amar le'olam bein lechoyayim le'Rabbi Yochanan muter. Why is it that he spoke about this case, like we mentioned, where you have these succession of lechis, kigoin, that here he said that it sounds, lukula alma bein lechoyayim is aser, kigoin should it suffer lechoyayim pachus ma'arba, that when you have, number one, this which is the case, there is less than 4 tvachim in between each one, okay? However, this is the word, b'meshech arba ames, the total of them is 4 ames. Now, what did we learn a few daf ago? That what's the minimum size of a mavui? I mean, we had that Ashita that said 4 tfachim, but then even the other opinion says that the moment you have an area of 4 amas, that is a mavui in itself. So since it's b'meshach arba amas, so let's go. That he says lavud because it's less than 4 tfachim. So b'meila, since all of these successions, all of these lechis are halachically one, ubemela, you have a mavui, and since it's a mavui in itself, it needs another lechi to be mated. You don't have another lechi, which is why you cannot carry opposite it, because this is a mavui without a lechi, and therefore now ul rabbanon the amri lo yamrin and lavud. So taka loy tzarech lechi achal atiroi. All right, and therefore. Hold on. Oh, Ravashi wants to make it clear. You will be allowed to carry even opposite the final lechi. And certainly you can carry opposite all the other lechayayim because it is not a mavui b'fnei atzmayim. Okay. This is Shitas Ravashi. Okay. Okay, now we have to say the following. Now we're going to open up the whole topic of having a lechi or a wall that's only visible from one of the domains, whether that's considered a proper mechitza, whether that's considered a proper lechi, v'chule. Says the Gemara. Ule Rab Shimon ben Gamliel. And here, I have in a picture, it was common that when people would put the lechi, I don't know how good you can see this from this picture, the lechi wouldn't only be at the end of the mavui, but it would actually extend a little bit into the reshus harabim, which is a good thing. So when people are walking on the street, they can already see, see this is a picture, it's not so, they can already see it's coming out, it's coming into the reshus harabim. So when you're walking, you can see something is sticking out of the wall, which is good. Now, Rab Shimon ben Gamliel. Now that we explained that according to the Rashbag, we consider all of these lichayayim as lavud, and therefore it is a mavui in itself. And true that it's sticking out, so when you are outside under the reshus harabim, it's visible. You see something protruding. It's a nira mibachutz. The problem is it's v'shava b'mefnim. V'shav means that that since it's one long wall, when you're in there, you don't even notice it. Now, guys, if you are viewing the mavui as only one mavui, of course you notice it, because when you are deeper in the mavui, you see towards one of the sides that there's many lechayayim. But now that we said that these lichoyayim, the area opposite all of these lichoyayim is a mavui in itself. So when you are in there, there is no lechi at all. And therefore, l'choura, since it's visible from the outside, that should be enough. If you're going to go that even a lechi that's visible only from the outside is enough, and no other lechi should be needed. And why are you telling me that according to the Rashbag, you need another lechi? Which is exactly what we said. Why do we say v'tzarach lechi achal atirai? No, this should still be good. Says the Gemara, midahu taima el Rabbi Yechanan. Right, we are all explaining Shitas Rabbi Yechanan. That's how we began. It was Rabbi Bar Chana Amar Rabbi Yechanan. So, ki asa Rabban Amar Rabbi Yechanan that nira mi bachutz v'shav mefnim eino nidan mishum lechi. Rabbi Yechanan holds that if you have a lechi that's not visible from both sides, it's not good. So now it fits weiter. So now that we explained that all of these four l'Rashbag they connect, and we view that area, an area of Daladamas, as a mavi b'fnei atzmai. And even though the front lechi is jutting into the Rishus Harabim, so it's nira mi bachutz. Since when you are in this new made-up mavi now, there you don't see any lechi, it's just the wall. It's the wall itself. That's why it doesn't work, and you need to have another lechi to be mated. And now let's tackle this topic itself. Itmar we learned nira mi b'fnim v'shavim mi bachutz. Nira mi b'chutz would be a classical case. Will be a classical case of a lechi. Not the case that doctor has up on the screen, but yeah, I don't think there's that's the case. In other words, a typical lechi, the lechi is not going into any of the Rishus Harabim. It's fully in there. So when you are in the mavui, in our case, and you're looking outward, you see it on your right side. If you're standing in the Rishus Harabim, especially if you are to the left of this entire mavui and you're walking from left to right, you're not going to see the lechi at all. So we learned that nidain mishum lechi. That for sure is good because you see in the inside, good. However, what happens if it's only nida mi bachutz v'shavim mefnim? If it's only visible to the people that are outside? So there are many cases. One example will be like this picture. If you'll see over here, that the lechi is mamish outside the mavi altogether. And therefore, again, if you're in the street and you're walking down from left to right, you're going to see a good picture. You're going to see the lechi. But if you're inside the mavui, you see it's mamish, it's flush with the wall of the mavui, so you can't see it. Is this a lechi enough to be matir the mavui? That's the question. So we have a machlokes between Rabbi Chia and Rab Shimon bar Rabbi. Yeah, that Chad Omar nidoin mishum lechi, but Chad Omar einu nidoin mishum lechi. And originally, we did not know which one was machmer, which one was make. Says the Gemara this time, I'll prove to you that Rab Chia is the one that considers this good. Nidem mishum lechi. The Tani, Rab Chia once quoted the Braisa. And we're going to assume, if he quoted the Braisa, he agrees with it. Koisel should see the echos konus mechaveiroi. Now, bein shenidim ebachutz, v'shavim v'afnim, bein shenidim v'shavim bachutz. Now we're going to have two cases. Here you have a case, my friends. We have a koisel that's nida mi bachutz, v'shavim mi bafnim. How is this nida? How is this nida mi bachutz v'shavim mi bafnim? Because when you're standing outside on the street and you look into the mavui, so what are you seeing? You see an indentation in the wall, and when you go in there, exactly, so that wall is coming out. It's making the mavui even narrower. So from the outside perspective, it's like a lechi. Now think about it. Imagine if you are inside the mavui and you're looking out, you don't see a lechi. There's nothing protruding. What you see is that towards the front of the mavui, it gets a little bit wider. But you don't see a lechi. You don't see any sort of beam. There's nothing indenting. There's nothing going in. So here, that's one case. Or the opposite case. Now get up to option B. The option B would be nida mi bafnim, but the shavim mi bachutz. Nida mi bachutz will be, the Gavaldic picture, that when you are in the mavui, as you can see, on one side, that means if you're in the mavui on your left side, when we're looking at the picture on our right side, when you're inside, it's mamash alechi. It's mamash on the other side, Danny. That side. When you're standing inside, you see a lechi. That's mamash a lechi. If you're walking under the Reshus Harabim, you don't see anything. You see a wall that has an opening in it, but both sides of the wall are equally all positioned. So the question is this a good lechi or not? This is all a braisa of Rab Chia. Again, bein shenirim b'chutz v'shavim b'fnim, ubein shenirim b'fnim v'shavim b'chutz. In both cases, neither mishum lechi. So is that ayat istayim that Rab Chia is the one that's lenient? Says the Gemara, hold on. Right, we said it's a machlokes between Rab Chia and Rab Shimon Rabbi. Now, we just quoted that Rabbi Yochanan does not hold that it's good. That's why we learned above that Rashi says that Rabbi Yochanan, in the case of Rashbag, tzarich lechi achala hatiroi. So hold on. Rabbi Yochanan Milo Shemielei, what Rabbi Yochanan did not know of the Braisa, he knew of the Braisa. Nevertheless, Rabbi Yochanan Milo Shemielei Ella, he heard it, but he doesn't agree with it. So just because Rabbi Chia quoted the Braisa, that doesn't mean that he agrees with it. Rabbi Chia Nami may be loy savarla. So just because he quoted the Braisa that it is a good lechi doesn't mean he subscribes to it. So the Gemara says, no, that's not correct. Hi, Mike. Bishleima, indeed, Rabbi Yochanan could have heard that Braisa. But you know what? Since he doesn't agree with it, he never taught it. Bishleima Rabbi Yochanan loy savarla mishumachar leitani lam. And this is a big rule when it comes to Braisas. Unlike Mishnayos, we learn Mishnayos. That was what Rebbe brought inside. And if there can be a Mishnah that none of it is lahalacha, so what? When it came to Braisas, since it was outside of the Mishnayos, if you would not hold of it, you would not teach it. Why would he have to teach it? Is that ayah that he agrees with it? So now we clarify that between Rab Chia and Rab Shimon bar Rebbe, Rab Chia is the one that's lenient. And just like we have this question regarding a lechi that is visible from one side and not visible to the other side, now we're going to continue with similar cases, actually cases in which we already discussed a little bit yesterday, and now we're going to come back to it, and that's the case where you had a double chutzin. Here's my double chutzin, and let's go even where a case is very important, right, Shlomo from yesterday. The two houses in the front, when you know what, I'll tell you, when Shabbos came in, where you have the dotted lines, there was a wall up. The two houses made an Eruv Chatzeres for themselves, but they never made it with the people behind them because they were completely cut off. The people in the narrower back Chatzer also before Shabbos made an Eruv Chatzeres amongst themselves, but there was never an Eruv between the Bnei Chatzer Gedolim and Bnei Chatzer Ketana. And there was a wall, and now the wall collapses. But the wall collapses, as you can notice in the picture. If you're standing in the inside, if you're standing in the little chutzir, now you have three walls. And yes, I know that three walls is a bona fide Reshus HaYachid, but here's the rule. Since there is no Eruv that they made with each other, b'meila, they are not allowed to carry in the larger yard. And there is a cloud that everyone agrees to, that when a wall opens up completely, parutz b'meloyoi, limekayim ha'asur, since they cannot carry in the larger yard, they may not carry in the area that opens up to it. So they can't carry in their small yard. They can't carry from one house to the other, even though they made an Eruv amongst the two back houses themselves. The Bnei Chatzer Gedolah, it's not parutz b'meloyoi. Why is it not parutz b'meloyoi? Now, guys, there's many conditions here. If the dotted lines is more than 10 amas, you got yourself a problem. But that's not the case. It's 10 amas or less. And each side still has some wall standing. So they, as far as they are concerned, they are still in their own box. There's four walls. It's zichanat parutz b'meloyoi. So they can carry in their larger area. Let's read it inside. Omar Rabba Barafuna. You should know that nida mibachutz v'shava mibafnim, even though you can only, that's nida mishum lechi. And on that, Omar Rabba, and Rabba, right, that's Rabba Barafuna, L'chura, he says, that when we have our tradition, that even though it's shava mibafnim, since it's nira mibachutz, it's a valid lechi, there's a challenge from the following Mishnah, which is Chatzer shenifretz ala gedola, like we saw in here in the picture, and the rule is gedola muteris. The gedola has 4 walls. Ketana only has 3 walls. And the pnei can pischa shel gedola. The whole ketana is as if it's an extension of the gedola. If you are standing in the ketana, because there's no wall at all. Now asks the Gemara, the imisa, that even though mibafnim you don't see a lechi. But since in the street you see a lechi, that lechi is valid l'bnei hamavoy, why don't you say the same thing over here? Since the people outside the Chatzer Ketana, they see a wall, there is a wall. You don't notice it, but there is a wall there. The Emisa Ketana Namatishtari, because it's nida mibachutz. If you're outside the inner small yard, which means when you are in the large yard, you can see the 2 sides. Even though it's b'shava mibafnim, it should have a din of a mechitza. This is a great question. So if it works for a lechi, why does it not work here for a mechitza? Amar Abzeda, I'll tell you why. You're right. Had it been like the case of the picture, Eina Chanami, Elama, that benechnasim, koislei, ketana, ligedoilo. There's another chesed in here. Must be, like you see up in the picture, that there isn't a simple right angle that if you look to the sides of the small entranceway, there's a little bit of a wall and it goes straight into the Chatzer Ketana. No, the walls of the Chatzer Ketana, they go into the Chatzer Gedola. And they go in that halachically, you block off the side wall. We no longer can say nida mibachutz, because that area that Danielle is circling, the area in the back, is separated from the Chatzer Ketana by the wall. So therefore, only in this case is where the Bnei Chatzer Ketana cannot carry. We're not done yet. The Gemara has still a very strong question on that. Guys, do you understand what's going on over here? With the pictures, I think it's very clear. In other words, since this right angle doesn't go into the Chatzer Ketana, so it's nicht gut. Frag die Gemara on that. Hold on. I'm still not happy. Why don't we say lavud? Why lavud? What's lavud? That if there's space in between this new wall that's protruding into the Chatzer Gedolah and the outer walls of the Chatzer Gedolah, if there is less than 3 tfachim, then we should make believe as if it's filled. And if it's as if it's filled, so you have the color blue, make believe, my friend, that there is a wall in the front of the blue. In the front of the blue, that's going to be a kaisel. Why is there a wall? Because it's all closed off. Lavud. So again, when you're standing outside the Chatzer Ketana, you see on both sides a wall. It's flush on the inside, but we are saying that even if it's only visible from the outside, it's good enough. So said and the chitema the mifligi too. I'll tell you why. We don't say lavud because it's more than 3 or more. No. In front of Rab Chanina, that the case of the Mishnah was ketana be'eser. The width of the inner smaller chatzir is 10 amos. The width of the outer one is 11 amos. Guys, what did we just learn a few daf ago? Let's go that an amma is 6 tfachim. Okay, not 5. Now, if it's divided equally on each side, 6 tfachim means there are 3 on the right and 3 on the left. But hold on. The koisel itself eats up from that space. In other words, if the koisel would not have any width, then you would have exactly 3, which is more than lavud. Lavud is less than 3. But since the width of these walls eat up some of the space in between, it's going to be automatically less than 3 tfachim. So we should say lavud. And when you apply lavud, then you don't have this answer. Amar Avina, who said that the inner chatzir was exactly positioned in middle of? No, it's more to the right or more to the left. Yes, 1 amma extra means there's 6, but 6 is not 3 and 3, it's 4 and 2. The koisel zeh mishnayim, koisel zeh bedalit. And therefore what? On the side of the 2, on the side of the 4, on the side of the 2, you have lavut. But on the side of the 4, even though the wall has some width, but there's still 3 tefachim or more in between these 2 walls. So here you don't say lavud. So here you don't have a koisel. But the question is, hold on. You have one side is good, right? The 2 tefachim side is good. So why isn't that side enough? A lechi, we only know we need to have 1 lechi. The last line of the Amid. The lema, lavud minuach achad, the tishri. Answers the Gemara on Daf Yud, no. That, guys, don't confuse a Reshus Harabim going into a Mavui. Different rules than the rules that we have in a Chatzar. Rabbi holds that when it comes to a Mechitza in a Chatzar, it's more Chamur than a Mavui. Now, we're going to learn a lot more about this on Daf Yud Beis. But we mentioned this, I think, even in the introduction on Daf Beis, that the rules of the mechitzas by a chatzar is more chamor, at least we're seeing one example, than when it comes to a mavui. By a mavui, 1 koira, 1 lechi. But over here, the amar be'inan shnei pasim. Pas means basically a lechi. In other words, you need to have 2 side posts. The Tanya, chatzar nitenes v'pasachas. However, Rabbi holds b'shnei pasim. So since coming back over here, if it's aligned in the center, then we are concluding we use lavud. And if you use lavud, so then since it's nida mibachutz, then you can carry the fnim. Guys, no one is saying you can carry from the smaller to the larger or from the larger to the smaller, but you can carry as it was before. It's a halachic wall. But if the chatzir ketana was not centered, Ubemela, one side doesn't have lavud, even though the other side does, the 2 tefachim does, since Rebbe holds when it comes to closing off a chatzir, a mechitza is not enough by putting up a lechi. You have to have from both sides. You don't have from both sides. Because from the side of 4 tefachim, it's not nida mibachutz. It's not nida mibachutz. And that's why the Mishnah says that the bnei chatzir ketana may not carry. God willing, to be continued. Guys, are we good? It's easy, with the pictures, it's easy.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
A lot of copies. I think this, if I remember correctly, this is basically just another week of this. It's not, don't think we're going to 100 DAF with this. And but once you get used to it, it's a machayim.
I load up on Tylenol before I sign in. Thank you very much. Have a good day.